Think about this. The year 1993, Beverly Hills. It is really busy in the foyer of the Four Seasons Hotel. Clint Eastwood stands alone, stone-faced, with his eyes narrowed and his arms crossed. There are producers dressed in Armani suits, Oscar winners drinking whiskey, and somewhere near the grand piano, Clint Eastwood is standing. In the opposite corner of the room, a young actor who is on the rise is holding court, laughing, and dropping names while recounting a story that culminates in a cheesy parody of the veteran cowboy director. The only person who does not laugh is Clint. He does not utter a single word. Instead, he simply finishes his drink, gives a slight nod to the bartender, and then walks out of the establishment without turning around. Just silence with no confrontation or incident to be found. Furthermore, the kind of silence that is conclusive. There was a hushed discussion about that occasion for many years. What exactly was it that was said? Is it true that Clint heard, almost immediately after that, why did the name of that actor vanish from the casting sheets used by Warner Brothers? Nobody was ever aware of it, since Clint Eastwood did not provide an explanation. There was no ranting, tweeting, or giving out sound bites to the tabloids. He simply disappeared without a trace, in a chilly and irreversible manner. However, the hush is coming to an end now. The legendary figure is now letting his guard down at the age of 94. As a result of the few instances of unplanned honesty that have occurred, a pattern has evolved. 5 well-known names, 5 famous people. Clint Eastwood never showed any sign of forgiveness. Those individuals who offended him, disrespected his vision, or just made the fatal mistake of thinking that he had forgotten about something. They did not just come into conflict with a filmmaker. They violated the character of a man who adhered to a set of rules and never gave in. A documentary fire starter who attempted to make a name for himself by making fun of Clint's principles is the first person on that list. On the other hand, Clint did not laugh. He did not give a result. Basically, he made sure that it would never happen again. This is the documentary of Michael Moore's showdown. It began with a humorous remark. To put it another way, Michael Moore believed that it was a joke. When Clint Eastwood ascended the stage at an event for the National Board of Review Awards in 2005, he delivered a quip that instantly put an end to the hilarity that was taking place. In all honesty, Michael Moore and I share a great deal of similarities. Documentaries are something that we both enjoy seeing, but if he ever comes to my house with a camera, I will murder him. There was an uneasy giggle from the audience. A few people let out a gasp. Clint did not show any signs of flinching. After that, he did not smile in response to it. There was no escape route for the room. As if it were gunpowder, the tension continued to linger in the air. It was not stand-up comedy. This was a cautionary note. The line that Clint had just drawn in the sand was a verbal one. Never again did one more have the courage to cross. A single remark made in passing was not the only thing that contributed to the development of this icy hostility. Moore's documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, which was a scathing critique of the tactics taken by the United States military and the Bush administration after the events of September 11, 2001, had been generating a lot of buzz. It was recognized with accolades. It caused Clint to become enraged, and it made headlines. Moore's work left Eastwood with the impression that it was nothing more than a cheap jab cloaked in self-promotion. Eastwood had grown up admiring World War II warriors and honoring those who had served quietly. In his mind, it was not a kind of criticism. According to him, it was a betrayal, and that was a direct hit to the face. Since by that time Clint had become more than just an actor. As a director and a storyteller, he was a man who had recently completed the film $1 Million Baby and was on the verge of releasing Flags of Our Fathers. He did not make pictures for the sake of making headlines. Rather, he made films that addressed American identity, sacrifice, and grief. In Clint's opinion, Michael Moore was not responsible for documenting the facts. He was taking advantage of it. The two never worked together again, and they never even stood in the same frame with each other. In addition, if you were to inquire about him in the present day, Clint would most likely raise an eyebrow, grumble once, and then change the subject. This is due to the fact that Eastwood does not encourage public feuds. He is a firm believer in the quiet eraser. On the other hand, Moore was hardly the only director who put Clint's patience to the test. On the subsequent occasion, he went even further, accusing Clint of attempting to cover up historical events on a global scale. In addition, Clint Eastwood did not merely push back, rather he struck back. The film A Battle Over History by Spike Lee. It is not often that Clint Eastwood responds to interviews, but in 2008, he made an exception, and the result was not pretty. The ambitious double feature that Clint Eastwood had created, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo, was praised by critics when it was released in theaters. From the American point of view, one film, and from the Japanese point of view, the other film. It was unfiltered, gloomy, and straightforward. To Spike Lee, however, there was a significant void in the story. He made a public accusation against Clint, stating that he had removed Black Marines from the narrative of Iwo, so drawing attention to the absence of representation in Flags of Our Fathers. Numerous African Americans made the ultimate sacrifice. The words of Spike were, "You can't ignore that." He was furious. Clint, in his response, he did not demonstrate any delicacy or press diplomacy. He retaliated with something that sounded more like a threat from the East than anything else. And someone like him ought to keep his mouth shut. The attack was not merely defensive, rather, it was explosive. It was all over the headlines. In the same vein, Spike did not hold back. "I'm not going to pull my voice down." It seems as though he is an irate elderly man. Entertainment news was dominated by the feud for several days. Two heavyweights of the film industry, one of whom was a traditionalist cowboy, and the other of whom was a modern provocateur, engaged in a verbal battle that brought to light the most profound issues that exist within Hollywood. And while many people attempted to moderate or interpret the repercussions, Clint never provided any clarification regarding his statements. Eastwood was able to deduce everything from that quiet. There was a particular set of soldiers that were the focus of the story of Iwo. His interest was not in crossing off items on a list. It was important to him to relate his narrative in the manner in which he perceived it. Furthermore, he was not going to allow anyone to influence the direction of his artistic endeavors. But Spike had a different point of view. He was of the opinion that Clint had a duty to communicate the complete tale of history, particularly because there were times when lives were lost in silence. There was more to it than just a movie. What was at issue was the significance of representation. Eastwood and Lee were two individuals who were so proud, principled, and obstinate that they never considered the possibility of reaching a compromise. Since then, they have not communicated with one another. They do not go to the same concerts or activities. They are not depicted on the same panels each other, and neither of them has publicly acknowledged the legacy of the other, at least not by themselves. But if you thought that Clint's conflicts were limited to those with other filmmakers, you would be wrong. Mostly due to the fact that his subsequent feud took place on the set of his own movie with one of the most famous actors in the world, namely an actor who attempted to test Clint's patience, but ultimately failed. Method versus Gunslinger, a comparison of Leonardo DiCaprio's. Two icons from two distinct eras, they were truly remarkable. Clint Eastwood, a grizzled, no-nonsense filmmaker who emphasized speed, stillness, and control, and Leonardo DiCaprio, an intense and emotionally charged actor who is known for his contributions to the Method films. After Eastwood cast Leonardo DiCaprio in the film J. Edgar in 2011, Hollywood was ecstatic. The old school and the new school came together in the most extreme form possible. On the other hand, that collision gradually transformed into a calm storm behind the scenes. From the very beginning, the tension was very noticeable. The directing approach that Clint was known for was known as one take, and not much time spent rehearsing, setting up, shooting, and then moving on. The efficiency was high, irrationally it was done, and it was the complete antithesis of how Leonardo DiCaprio conducted himself. Leo enjoyed going on adventures. Multiple takes were what he desired. What questions did he ask? The emotional depths of Clint were explored by him. During the time that Leonardo DiCaprio was trying to be discreet, Clint was already yelling out, "Cut, move on." Members of the crew discussed the tension in hushed tones. It was like watching a racehorse try to run in cowboy boots, said a person with knowledge of the situation. Even though there were no yelling bouts or walkouts, the atmosphere on set was packed with tension. When it comes to the manner in which a story should be conveyed, two great artisans who take extraordinarily different methods are caught in a silent conflict. As best he could, Leonardo DiCaprio adapted. Clint did not move an inch. There was a film produced. It was made available. After that, there was complete stillness. There will be no second meeting. Not a single word of praise in interviews. When it comes to awards, there are no shout-outs. Despite the fact that Clint frequently utilizes performers that he admires, such as Bradley Cooper and Morgan Freeman, he never again named himself Leo. There are many who believe that there was a mismatch of creative ideas. For some, Leonardo DiCaprio was a high maintenance, dramatic, and even narcissistic individual, according to Clint. Regardless of the circumstances, their professional path diverged like a lens that had been fractured, and East would never look back. In spite of the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio may have questioned Clint's authority behind the camera, the next name on the list did something that was even more heinous. In front of the entire world, he brought Eastwood's legacy into disrepute and managed to get away with it. So he believed it to be. Clint will never forget the sniper slur that was directed at Seth Rogan. There are certain performers who are considered to be quiet enemies. A noisy one was built by Seth Rogan. American Sniper is a biographical war film directed by Clint Eastwood and released in 2014. It recounts the life of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle. Although it was met with mixed reviews from critics, the movie broke all previous box office records and caused a cultural uproar. Although it was a tribute to those who had served in the military for many people, Rogan saw it as something quite else. Jaws was left speechless when Rogan posted a jab on Twitter just a few days after the film was made available to the public. In a way, American Sniper reminds me of the movie that is currently being shown in the third act of Inglourious Basterds. This is the movie in which the Nazi sniper is killing supporters of the enemy. Clint was not specifically mentioned by him. He did not have to do it. By drawing parallels between Eastwood's film and Nazi propaganda, the implication was extremely powerful. The harm had already been done, despite the fact that Rogan stated that it was nothing more than a joke. Clint Eastwood did not respond to either tweet. It was not a statement that he issued. It was because Clint does not engage in social media disputes that he did not utter a single thing. He is a silent person. There is complete and utter silence. According to informed sources, Eastwood was furious behind closed doors, not only because to the insult itself, but also due to the fact that it was made public. In no way was it a discussion. The crime was a hit and run. It was not only disrespectful to Clint, but it was also a sign of cowardice. And even though Rogan would later retract his statement and clarify that he was not referring to the American Sniper as Nazi propaganda, Clint's ears and heart were never able to hear or feel the apology. Rogan was never mentioned again by Eastwood, and he never worked with him. According to reports, Eastwood made it quite clear to close collaborators that if Rogan's name ever appeared on a casting list, it had better disappear as quickly as possible. Mostly due to the fact that if there is one thing that Clint Eastwood does not tolerate, it is being mistreated by someone who believes that everything is one big joke. In contrast, the next name, which was the last name, was neither that of a comedian or a political loudmouth. He was not only Clint's equal, but also his co-star and peer, and their feud grew in complete silence until a picture that will live long in the memory came dangerously close to putting an end to it all. The competitor, Gene Hackman, whom he was unable to direct. They were exciting to watch on screen. Away from the camera, they seldom chatted. The film Unforgiven, which was directed by Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman and released in 1992, was a film that revolutionized the Western genre and won multiple Academy Awards. A slow, burning storm was lurking beneath the performances of the two giants. Despite the fact that it appeared to be a seamless partnership between the two of them, Clint was well known for his ability to conduct a respectful and tight set. His priorities were control, silence, and trust. The hacker. In addition to being infamously aggressive, he was also erratic and fiery. Eastwood may have allowed his performers some leeway, but he wanted them to be disciplined. Hackman was a source of heat. There is an excessive amount of stuff. Even during the very first week of filming, there were rumors that something was going wrong. It was difficult for Hackman to create notes. It was his habit to interrupt Clint's directions. It is a challenge to block, make an effort to rewrite lines. It was not one of revolt. It was a matter of pride. During a crucial sequence, Hackman paused in the middle of the take, turned to Clint, and said, "That line doesn't work." This was recalled by one of the assistants. "I'm not going to say it." Clint did not fight back. He did nothing but look. Then, with a tone that was gentle yet lethal, the response was, "You will." No, it wasn't a shouting. This was the end. For the remainder of the shoot, tension lingered over the set like a thunder cloud in the desert. Even though they never argued in front of the crew, the silences that they maintained said more than any words could possibly say. Yes, there is mutual respect. There is no evidence of the mutual affection. Following the completion of Unforgiven, both men were presented with gold sculptures. Nonetheless, this was the final time that they ever appeared on the same set. When questioned about the film many years later, Clint would mention Morgan Freeman as the person he would like to work with. He never invited Hackman back, and he never mentioned him as a favorite collaborator. Richard Harris would be mentioned by him, but Hackman industry insiders rarely, if ever, felt that the regard was genuine. However, the relationship was hopeless and could not be saved. There was an excessive amount of ego and conflict, and in Clint's perspective, that meant that there was only one thing that could be done. Soon after that, Hackman would call it quits in the acting industry. As time went on, Eastwood continued to carefully select the people he included in his inner group. Because as far as Clint Eastwood is concerned, chemistry is not about celebrity, but rather about trust. On the other hand, once that is broken, even by a fellow legend, it is final. There are two idols, one film that will live on in infamy, and a wall of silence that has never been broken, mostly due to the fact that when Clint Eastwood shuts a door, it remains shut. The Gunslinger's Silence is a documentary. Whenever Clint Eastwood wanted to make a message, he never needed to shout. He did not exhibit angry outbursts. When he was interviewed, he did not reveal his dirty laundry. He did nothing but watch and wait, and when someone crossed the boundary, he did not respond with any kind of fight. In a stealthy manner, he eliminated them permanently. In the entertainment industry, where reputations are built on charisma and working together, Clint created his career on something very different: unwavering faith in the truth. Each of these 5 famous people discovered the hard way that working with Eastwood was more than just a professional arrangement. It was like a test. Respect, discipline, and the ability to recognize when to keep your ego in check are all put to the test. Some others gave it a spectacular failure. Thus, the question is now yours to answer. Do you believe that Clint made the proper decision to keep quiet, or do you believe that some of these grudges went too far? Your ideas are welcome in the comments section. Everyone is read by us. You should also hit the subscribe button and enable notifications if you are interested in learning further undiscovered secrets from the golden age of Hollywood. This is because for every celebrity that Clint Eastwood could not stand, there was another name that he silently respected, and as soon as possible, we will be exposing those.